Welcome back to Kairos Conversations. Today we are celebrating 1,000 subscribers. So we're here to thank you guys for supporting us as we've launched this channel. And we're going to talk about some of our favorite highlights and moments over the last year and a half that we started our YouTube channel. So stay tuned. Welcome back to Kairos Conversations. I'm Courtney Trotter, your resident Hebrew enthusiast, and I'm joined by Ryan Martin, our New Testament Greek guy. If you want to learn more about the biblical languages, Greek and Hebrew, and the cultural backgrounds, you have found the right place, because here we want to help you discover the world of the Bible through the original languages. All right, so Ryan, we already kind of are excited for today. This is a celebratory episode. We're celebrating 1,000 subscribers. Woohoo!
That's right. It's really this has been a really fun part of our work over the last couple of years. I mean, we're usually teaching classes and prepping curriculum and doing our own research things we're doing, and it's fun to be able to come in here every couple of weeks and talk about the things that we're learning and things we're interested in. And it's been really exciting to engage with all of you in the comments, and our students who are watching, to get to talk about these things in class that we bring up in our videos is always really exciting. Yeah, love it.
I know, it's super exciting. And apparently this puts us in the top 5% of all YouTube channels. So we've hit an upper echelon of
Are you
YouTube.
serious? The top 5% just
Yeah,
because having 1,000 subscribers?
I think
Wow.
so. I think if I looked it up correctly, I'm sure somebody
That's
can
awesome.
correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. Yeah, it puts us in good company with people who have much larger channels than ours. So all right. So we already kind of mentioned we're going to hit some highlights today. We're going to hit highlights of our top episodes, the ones that you guys liked the most and shared the most and gained the most traction. Also, maybe some of ours that were our favorite but didn't gain the traction. So we'll list a couple of those. And we will also go through some of our favorite book recommendations, ones that we tend to recommend every single week or most weeks in class to our students. So hopefully you'll get some behind the scenes here at Kairos Classroom, what it would be like to be in class with us. So Ryan, let's start with our top Greek episode. You want to start with that one?
Yeah, this is kind of not surprising when you think about, I don't know, clickbaity titles and the kind of things that tend to blow up on the internet. But our video of the what 666 in Revelation means, the mark of the beast. That is our highest, our most viewed episode on the New Testament. And that was a lot of fun. And it's generated a lot of conversation in class, even amongst students that do not agree with the conclusion we reached in the video. Yeah, not surprising, right? I mean, everybody loves to talk about these wild symbols and images in Revelation.
Yeah, and I tend to share it even in our Hebrew classes when we get to, Hebrew numbers and things like that,
Yeah,
because
it's
they all want to know,
gematria.
like,
It's
doesn't this
this
track
kind of
into the
stuff
New
is
Testament?
huge.
So it's been a good one to share on both sides, Hebrew and Greek. All right, so our top Hebrew episode, also not a huge surprise. It was our episode on Michael Heiser and the use of the term Elohim throughout the Old Testament of the Hebrew Bible. And not a surprise, because Michael Heiser has a massive following compared to us. But we decided to do this episode, one, to commemorate his life and scholarship and the impact that he had, but also that word Elohim is so pivotal to his research. But a lot of times that the way it's used and the different contexts that it's used in is kind of buried in longer lecture series of his. So you have to listen to like an hour or 4 hour long lecture to just get that summary of Elohim. And so I was like, we could do this in less than 20 minutes. And that way it would be a good place for people to go and see the word Elohim, see the different contexts that it's used, and to kind of see that matrix of how it relates to beings in the spiritual realm. So not just capital God, God, but also angels or disembodied spirits of people who have passed away, all kinds of members of that spiritual realm. So that's a good episode. Check it out if you haven't already.
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel like I hear about these things all the time and have for a long time. But after he went to be with the Lord, everything that he was known for and that his scholarship stood for just became talking points everywhere.
Yes.
I'm not surprised that so many of you kind of stumbled upon us through that video, and very good and thoughtful engagement. Well, mostly thoughtful engagement in the comments.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
All right, so our second highest rated Greek episode Ryan was on John 1:1, which I know you had a ton of fun preparing that video for us. So give us a brief description and what was your favorite part about it?
Yeah, man, that one. I think that was the first one we did after kind of like our intro. I've actually went back and watched it recently. There's a few things in there that I've done a lot. I'll talk about discourse analysis when we talk about favorite things that we recommend in class. I have a better understanding about what's going on in that passage now than I did, 2.5 years ago or whenever we recorded that. So we might need to record like a revisited.
Yeah.
I still, obviously the same ultimate conclusion, that the word was God is a faithful translation among other faithful translations. I'm not, I haven't waffled on my, what I think the text means, but in terms of the Greek grammar and syntax, why it means what it means, and how we think about predicate nominatives and where they fall in the sentence. I've done a lot of kind of armchair linguistics over the last few years that have helped me understand that a little better. So we might need a part two video for that. But I'm glad that all of you liked that. In the beginning was the Word. The Word is with God, and the Word was not a God, but God.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously that's very significant for apologetics purposes with different religions, and that seems to be a verse that they kind of go after quite a bit to challenge that divinity of Jesus' claim. So no surprise again that it has gained a lot of traction.
That's good. And what about our next Hebrew one?
Yeah, our next Hebrew one is also one that I pretty much share every single time we start a new Hebrew class. Um, so it's on Hebrew acrostic poetry, which is where the letters of the Hebrew alphabet all begin a new line and or a new verse of a particular psalm, or there are other poems throughout the Hebrew Bible like Lamentations or Proverbs 31 that are also acrostic poems. So it's kind of in the video, it's like L is for the way you look at me, O is for the only one I see, right? That's kind of how they work, but just with the Hebrew alphabet order, which is why I tend to share it in the first class session. So it's like, hey, we know the Hebrew alphabet, and now you can see that this psalm follows this order. So we're just walking through that and how it makes a big significance in how you would interpret books like Lamentations, for instance. Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, it's amazing. It feels like so long ago that we did these. In a way, it has been, but that's good.
Yeah, both of those were kind of two of our first ones. So Hebrew acrostic poetry and John 1:1. Um, so yeah, that's kind of cool to see they've gained so much traction to be the first. Maybe we weren't doing so bad in the beginning.
Our sound quality's probably gotten a little better.
Maybe I don't know. Sometimes I'm still struggling on my end, but all right. So Ryan, I said okay. Those are the ones that gave us a lot of traction. What is an underappreciated episode that you really liked? That was one of our Greek episodes.
Man, go back and watch. We have one on all the participles in Mark's account of the woman with the issue of blood crawling up to Jesus, and how the she touched the hem of his garment is the main verb, and that everything leading up to that, having suffered with an issue of blood, having suffered under many doctors, having not improved but only gotten worse, spending everything she had, seeing Jesus in a crowd, crawling up. Those are all participial phrases leading up, and I just think it's a fun. For somebody like me that loves grammar, it's fun to look at how the way that it's told, the kind of things that we talk about in our Greek classes. Oh, look, these participial phrases are supporting a main verb. Well, that main verb, that's the punch. That's the gut punch after all the kind of build up. The wow, she touched his garment.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about the theological implications of that in the following episode with you. And the yeah, really, really fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that was a great episode. It was a two-parter too, where we followed up with some of the Hebrew Bible background related to that text as well, with the like tzitzit or the tassels of Jesus's garment. So you guys, both of those, that's a good two-part series. I know, probably one of my favorite Hebrew episodes. It's hard because I like every single episode I put together. So but probably one of my favorite is the pilot's wife had a dream episode, because I think that I'm like a sucker for someone looking for the same repeated theological motifs in a text. And that one, just that pattern traces really well through, as you look in that video, through The Joseph story with Joseph and Pharaoh in Genesis, then the Daniel story where Daniel is before Nebuchadnezzar, and then Esther before, in Persia, and then also with Pilate's wife at the crucifixion of Jesus. So it's a really neat narrative pattern as you chase it through the old two New Testaments. So that's probably one of my favorites.
That's awesome. Yep, those are good ones.
All right, yeah, I know. It's like those are good ones. Also, I think we got some pretty cool Psalm 23 episodes. Everybody loves
We
Psalm 23.
do. We can keep going
Yeah,
with those and create like a whole playlist.
we should. Yeah, and we could keep going because I walked through Psalm 23 and Hebrew 4 yesterday, so it was. And we could do way more. We could do way more with the poetry there.
And if there's any of you watching, if there's any episodes that you remember that are amongst your favorite that we haven't mentioned, tell us in the comments. We'd love to know.
For sure. We would love to know. Awesome. Okay, well, so we've done our top episodes or favorite from you guys out there in the interwebs. Then we did some of our top episodes that were a little bit underappreciated, so go and check those out. But now we're going to wrap this up by listing some of our favorite books that we tend to recommend in class. So, Ryan, you got a couple that you want to start us out with?
Yeah, that sounds good. I feel like as we move towards the end of Greek 3 and 4, or Greek 3 and towards the end of Greek 4, and students are like, "Where is another place I can go?" Especially the students that are kind of into the grammar, and a lot of students are. They're like, "Yeah, I'm in here to be able to read, comfortably read the text and to be able to interact with it in its own linguistic framework." But I also like I'm in. I also want to continue reading and learning about grammar and syntax and how to read this. And I think taking a step into the world of discourse analysis, this is a very readable introduction to that. Especially if you spent much time reading linguistic things, it's hard. It's hard for people like me that haven't been trained in that. But this is very readable and helpful. This is Steve Runge's discourse grammar of the Greek New Testament, and even for students that might not go through and read the whole thing, we bring up things, or I'll share bits of this or examples from this to talk about issues related to what do I do with something that comes before a verb? Is it always there because it's like the most important part of the sentence? No. It might be there just to kind of help set us up for a jumping off point for the sentence, a frame. Or it might be the most important part of the sentence that's brought to the front because to make it even more most important her.
Yeah.
It's kind of like emphasis type categories. So we talk about these things and we reference these ideas. I think that's one of my favorites. I love, teaching the grammar is great. I love it. I'm teaching exegesis courses to our students that have finished Greek 4. I've taught courses in the book of Revelation, in Mark, which is the area of my PhD study, and in Ephesians as well. And when I think about books that I've read with students in these exegesis classes, there's a few of them that come to mind that I bring up a lot. Tim Gombas's Drama of Ephesians. This has been the fodder for some of the most exciting conversation in working in Ephesians with students about the victory of God over the powers, something that we just kind of misses our cultural emphases and the way that we think about things in our world that's very devoid of giving any thought to the unseen realm, and the way that the victory of Jesus in Ephesians and in much of the New Testament is framed around Jesus' victory over the powers of darkness and evil, and that he seated us with him over God's enemies, is really exciting and kind of holds the book together theologically. Teaching on Revelation right now, and this is my all-time favorite book on the book of Revelation and how to understand the imagery, kind of in the Hebrew Bible context, and also in the Greco-Roman imperial context. Richard Bauckham's The Theology of the Book of Revelation is a favorite and one that my students are benefiting from as well. So yeah, think about to list a few right now. That list could be different next week, but that's what
Yeah.
feels good right now.
Yeah, well, I was just looking and I thought I had my discourse book right beside me to do it, but I apparently did not pull it out. But I like also for the same reason, once you get done with kind of your basic Hebrew grammar and you want to read further, we've given you a lot of tools to know again some of those discourse markers as you've gone through, but just to be able to work through it on your own. I like the basics of Hebrew discourse. That's in the Zondervan series. It's got the green cover. We'll throw all of this up on a slide at the end, you guys, so that you can see them. So I like the basics of Hebrew discourse. That's generally speaking where I send students next. It's kind of a short book and it's like a two-part book. The first part is the basics of Hebrew discourse in narrative passages, and the second part is the basics of Hebrew discourse in poetry, which are two separate things. So we deal a little bit with poetry by the end of Hebrew 4, but poetry especially is one of those things that is a developed skill kind of post your basic grammar phase. Like you kind of have to work on that. So that's a good place to start. Another place that I like to send students and I often recommend to students is Robert Alter's Hebrew Bible translation. This is just the book of Psalms. Like his other one is over here to my left-hand side, like the full series, but this is the book of
I have his
Psalms.
Pentateuch one.
Yeah, this Pentateuch one. Great. That's a great place to begin too. This is a like literary translation of your Hebrew Bible that's trying to preserve a lot of those word plays or sound plays that's happening in Hebrew, because Hebrew is so evocative in the way that it is crafting the language to make theological points that often can be missed if you're just going for the meaning, which is important, but everybody who speaks another language knows that things are lost in translation, right? So, so yeah, I would say Robert Alter's Hebrew Bible translation is really great and just a must-have if you're a Hebrew student, even if you can only do it digitally, because it has been out of print a lot of this last year. So I think that they just released a new printing. But if you can't get it in print, then I would say just get it digital.
Sometimes translations with commentary can be nice to have as digital resources, especially if you're
Right.
prepared. If you're either writing up things that you're researching, or preaching, or leading Bible studies. The copy and paste ability is nice.
Exactly. Exactly. Then another one that I like to recommend to students are Reader's Hebrew editions. So I like the Crossway Readers, Hebrew Readers. But then also this last year, there was this scholar, his name is Timothy Lee, who released readers on the Old Testament, Septuagint, and New Testament. And you can buy them as individual books, which I really like. And he's got them well formatted. So I, this last year, used the one on the Psalms as I was like reading the Psalms in Hebrew devotionally. So those were some of my favorites, just to have as a single book that you could have, and you're not like, my Hebrew reader right here, you guys, is gigantic. Like it's this thing right here. So having a single book that is not, just massive to be able to read through is really helpful. So I like Timothy Lee's series. And then probably my last one that I reference this book all the time to students. It's just more of a theological work than an explicit Hebrew language work. But if my students have listened to me teach it any amount of time, I reference this book all the time, which is John Levinson's Resurrection and the Restoration of Israel. He is a Jewish scholar and he's working through the Hebrew Bible to show kind of where this logic of resurrection comes from. And because it can be seen as like, oh, that's just a Christian invention that comes with Christ, or it's way later and it's not native to the Hebrew Bible. And so he works really hard to show that a lot of this thinking comes straight from the Hebrew Bible, from Torah, and from the Psalms and particular readings of the Psalms. So it's just a really great treat to read
Is this
as a
what you
Christian
read
reader.
from at the end of our Psalm 23 resurrection video?
Yes, I did read from that then. Yeah, and he's a great writer too. So it's like scholarship that's fun to read. Like it's fairly easy to read because he spends so much time crafting each sentence, and you can tell. So that one, and then my last one. I've got five for you guys. I probably overachieved. I didn't tell Ryan I was going to have five, but I've got five. Um,
No, go for it.
this one is coming out. It's not even out yet. But the other question that people tend to have as it relates to the Hebrew Bible and their Christian faith is, what do I do with like Leviticus and the law or something like that? Right. So that's such a big deal. And it's not out yet, but you can listen to the author. He has a new podcast that just came out as well. But Jesus and the Law of Moses is coming out this fall. And the podcast is called Jesus and the Jewish Law, either one of those, and they're walking through how Jesus negotiated the law in his own day, how he upheld the law, and in surprising ways that we don't tend to see as Christians. So it's going to be a really great book. I haven't read it yet, but just based on his academic work and papers and things like that, I'm really excited for Paul Sloan's book, Jesus and the Jewish, or
Right.
Jesus and the Law
Yeah.
of Moses. Podcast is Jesus and the Jewish Law. Yeah, those are my recommendations. I feel like I hit it all. Discourse, reading the Hebrew Bible, resurrection, and the law. So those are pretty
That's
big
great.
categories to hit.
Those are some Old Testament hot topics there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. This is fun. 1,000 subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all.
I know. Thank you guys for supporting us. We obviously wouldn't be here without you. If we just had 10 viewers, we probably would have stopped eventually. But you're here, which is really great and an encouragement for sure. Any final thoughts before we go, Ryan?
Excited to see what we do next. If there's anything that you're just dying to hear us talk about, tell us in the comments.
Yeah, exactly. Anything you want to hear us talk about, we'll be willing to talk about it for 20 minutes, you guys. So let us know, and we'll do an episode on it. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this 1,000 subscriber congratulations episode and recap. Always feel free to reach out to us, and until we see you next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you.